I had a question about,
Sure.
Tristana was part of the film. We met her during one of the scenes. And then Jagger obviously has connections with the people that were actually at the event. But how did you guys deal with, what's the feedback that you've been getting, especially from the people that were there? Any pushback that you've gotten from the community of doing a film at all, centering in again, we're not glorifying the killer in this film. We're putting it forth, in an artful way. But how did you deal with any of the pushback that you got from the community that was present at the time, or the rave community that knew that this film was going down?
Yeah, I mean, it's been taxing for me as a producer because I understand in clear terms what, as I mentioned before on the call, like PTSD looks like and feels like, having had that happen to me. I didn't I've never had any violence happen to me in my life that has created a lasting impression of trauma. But my father was a violent alcoholic, and I can remember as a child being pulled out of bed, in particular, like by one arm and right onto the ground, like many times out of dead sleep. So I had that to draw on in terms of what some element of trauma looks like. I think that all those people who were in and around that community, and certainly everybody who experienced the thing, I mean, it's just idiotic to even say they're entitled. They're not entitled. They have everything that they feel is valid. And if they don't think that a film should be made, that's valid. And we did our best to, show difference to that community by holding a private screening for friends and family of victims and survivors before the public saw the film. And Dr. Adler, Rich Adler, our co-producer, who's a forensic psychiatrist, I raised money for that screening. And the Candida Foundation stepped in and helped fund that screening. And they had mental health professionals there. And Jagger and I were not there because Rich Adler said we should not be there because it was about them. It certainly wasn't about us. And he said, just to give you a sense of it, a lot of you came to that SIF Cinema and that upstairs room where we did the first auditions in 2012. That was the environment where sort of the audience collected after the film and they sat around in circles apparently, and they talked about the film quietly. And we didn't get any negative reports in terms of re-traumatizing anybody who was there at the film. But Randy Pinney did leave the film pretty much right away with her girlfriend and did not sit down and interact in any of those circles at all. And right before the film opened, she was contacted by the stranger. And we had, given Tristana's information and Randy's information to the reporter at the stranger. And she talked to Randy, and Randy had been traumatized by the film. And we didn't know it. We'd followed up with her, but either Rich said she didn't respond, or the response was like, I'm fine. And that was not the case. And so what came out of her that day to that reporter was a lot of feelings of, I think, betrayal from the perspective of her talking with Jagger and sharing details about what had happened that day. And, of course, her, absolutely, on point feeling that, like, she, none of these characters are one for one, with the exception of the murderer in the film. All you guys are composites of people that Jagger knew and ideas that came from our imaginations to try and get closer to these emotional truths and to tell the story. And even though she knew she wasn't Strobe Rainbow, she wasn't you, Atsuko, she couldn't divorce herself from some of the actions and some of the things that were said by the character. And I think that did not make her feel good. And so that all came out in that piece. So it's pretty freaking miraculous from my standpoint, in that I've stayed in contact with Randy ever since the opening about 3 years ago. And she's really struggled, as you can imagine anybody would. But I've really stayed in close contact with her. And the fact that she's actually going to be talking to Jagger on the freaking radio and probably getting into this, there's an opportunity maybe for some reconciliation and healing, or, I don't know. But I would hope so. I would hope that happens. So that, you know, Jose, that's a lot of words for answering, you know.
No, that's, you know, you guys, it seemed like, you know, giving them space for that, having mental professionals there, you know, listening to the community and still, you know, keeping the integrity of the piece and doing it with all that in mind. I mean, you know, that's the best that you could do. I was just wondering about how much controversy and if there was any healing that was happening from the viewing.
Well, some of it, you know, social media is social media. And like, for example, when we opened the film at the Grand Illusion in Seattle for our run, we had a lot of negative things that were coming at us in social media. And I talked with Jagger and I talked with Richard and I think maybe one other person in our group in marketing about whether to, you know, disable some of the contents or comments of people who were, you know, saying negative things about the film. And we just decided, no, we're just going to let them post up and let it be. You know, we're not going to edit any of this stuff at all and just let it flow, because you know, I get emotional just talking about it, because, you know, it was hard to make that decision. It was hard to go through that and really go through it, you know, not be like, this is a decision from on high from the decision maker. It's like, I can't do justice to this thing unless I feel this shit. You know, I can't. I just can't do it. And maybe I don't even belong here. I don't belong here unless I do that. So, yeah, we did that. And then they had talked about showing up at the theater and this and that and the other, but it was a good screening. It was quiet. Nobody showed up to, you know, protest or confront us. Rich and I were there and we did the Q&As for a couple of days, and the screenings were powerful. And we're going to post one of those, I think, Q&As here soon if we haven't already. And yeah, it turned out.